Frank Frazetta, Jeffrey Catherine Jones, Ken W. Kelly. There's just so many. And like, I remember I used to be a big reader as a little kid. And I remember like going to the library and like getting the book out just based on the cover art. I know you're not supposed to judge a book by the cover, but, I'd get it and I would like take it home and I would just like stare at it and like, just like get like my nose like right up against that cover and just be like, oh, like what if I could be like in that world? And so like just like trying to recreate that feeling is something I have in mind a lot when I do my work. So.
Welcome to Panel Perspective here on 9 Panel Grid. I'm joined today by Nick from Comic Culture and Stu from Dr. Doom's Fan Club, and we're lucky enough to be joined by Sam J. Royale, who just recently had a book released, Kala Jadoo. Sam, thanks so much for joining us, dude. I really appreciate you taking the time
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Dude, of course, of course. So let's jump right into your new book, actually, man, because it just released maybe, a month ago, something like that. What's the reception been like?
So far, so good. I was originally planning to, so I should say, it's a paranormal zine that comes with a set of trading cards, and it's my first not strictly comic project that I've self-published in the last 4 years, and so my original plan was to kind of push it to a non-comic audience, but the comic audience has already grabbed onto it, so. I'll take what I can get. But so far, so good with the reception. I'm pretty happy with how things are going.
That's great. I noticed your like zine kind of format. Like the format's a little bit different,
Yes.
right? It's almost like one for one.
Yeah, it's a sweat.
And I noticed some of your other stuff are in that like that zine format as well. So I just love the way that you format your books and everything. Can you go over like a little bit about how you settle on that type of format when you're doing with different books, and how'd you land on this format for this one in particular?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's all kind of nerdy. It goes back to this Dishoom is my first self-published comic book. It's a anthology that deals with sci-fi and fantasy and a whole other genres. But I really don't like complicated math, and I like and like so. This is the thing. Okay, all three of you guys are big comic book people, and you guys have been reading comics your whole lives. You all are very familiar with the standard American comic size. You hold them multiple times a week. You look at them all the time.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know the dimensions of them?
Ooh, what is it, like eight
Sure,
and a half,
but don't
like
ask
10
me.
something? Yeah.
The thing is, I don't know either. And like I've also been reading comics, and I've been talking to a lot of people who make comics, and nobody knows off the top of their head. And we all have the same templated files that we're working from, and we're all using those same dimensions all the time. But it's like some ridiculous, like fourth decimal place. It's like 6 point something inches. And then like you want to get like a digital file that has like a simple grid with even sized gutters, and it shouldn't be as hard as it is. And like everyone's working on illustration board that is 11 by 17, and then they're blocking it off to I think 10 by 15, and then they're marking that off for the safe area, and then what are you doing?
And they reduce it.
Yeah, and so the thing is, like, Dishoom is 5.5 by 8.5, which is just a standard letter size paper folded in half, and it happens to be exactly in proportion with 11 by 17. So there's already no math. So you just work at 11 by 17 and know you'll be exactly half that size. It's so much easier. So
that's so enlightening to hear, man, because I have an art, I wanted to be an artist as I was growing up here, and I was terrible at math. So now it all makes sense. It's all connecting here because of you. So thank you.
I appreciate it coming in handy for someone else, because so far it's just been me. Because like people always complain, oh, your books are too small. We want to see that art bigger. We like your art, but we want to see it on a larger format. And well, you know what? I like this. I also think it's like just a more comfortable size to hold, and makes for a more intimate reading experience, makes for a more portable book. So yeah, I'm pretty settled on these smaller sizes. But you asked about this one, and so just before that, earlier this year, I did this one, Pariah Many Lands, which collects these comic strips that I did, and that was a square format, and this is like sometimes it just has to feel right. And this is a character that I came up with back in college, and I don't know why, but I just always saw it as a square format book and held on to that idea for a long, long time. And when I finished this earlier this year, I just thought, well, this is a comfortable format, and I have a nice grid that I like working with uh, now, and so I might as well carry that same grid over to this new Kala Jadoo project. So that's the idea. And then it goes a step further, like more math, and I don't want to do math. And so with like the trading cards, they have square images, so they're the same size and cropping as the square
Yeah.
image.
Nice.
Oh.
So it's just a lot less work. I guess you could say I picked these formats out of laziness. So
You just drop a footer across the bottom, and then there you go, right? Yeah, that's perfect, man.
Just speaking a little bit more to your process, I love both Kala Jadoo and Dishoom. You have, these beautiful painted, it seems like painted pages and also some digital work. And I know I've heard you say before, you've put art on like brown paper bags and
yes.
scanned it in digitally. What is your process, generally speaking? Like when you're creating art for these books and putting everything together?
Well, it definitely varies from project to project. The thing with Dishoom was this one was my first ever self-published book, and I thought I don't know what style was going to be like my style, what visual approach is going to be like a signature thing for me, if anything. And so I thought if I just do an anthology, I have an excuse to play with different styles as long as they fit the story. And then I later expanded that to as long as it fits the particular scene within the story, I could just use whatever materials I want to use. And then I thought maybe by the end of the book, I'll have a workflow that I enjoy, that feels right, or I'll just keep experimenting forever because it's fun. And I'm somewhere in the middle on that. I usually like to work with some analog stuff that's finished up digitally, but you can't really see based on the angle here, but there's a lot of baby stuff in the background. We got like a playpen and a stroller. And now that we got the kid, I can't have art supplies out.
Right.
I don't have a studio. We have, it's a small apartment. And so for Kala Jadoo, most of the stuff has been digital. There's been maybe 2 or 3 illustrations that had some hand done thing, but it's like if you're working during nap time, you got to be ready to like put the stuff away. Like it would basically be, you put them down for the nap and you do the dishes, you clean the kitchen, and then you sit down and you got 10 minutes. And that's how this entire book was actually put together.
Wow.
So it was really important to find a workflow. But I would love to get back into the more tangible materials. Just recently, my wife signed up for this pumpkin decorating contest, and so I had an excuse to play with acrylics for the first time in what feels like forever. And so I definitely want to get back into that. But yeah, that's where it comes from. Yeah, you mentioned the brown paper bags. That's something else. This is a conversation I was having recently with another artist friend of mine, where I get really intimidated when I have expensive materials. I had a high school art teacher that gave me this beautiful hardbound sketchbook that to this day I have not put one mark in because it's just like I can't ruin this beautiful book. And so a lot of times, like just to be relaxed, what ends up happening is a lot of my best work comes out of just using really cheap materials. And sometimes that's brown packing paper, like literally the packing paper that comes in at the Amazon shipment. You smooth it out and you get some Crayola colored pencils from the drugstore. And that's where I've been coming from I think I've been playing around with that since like 2019.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Still do that here.
It's
Wow.
crazy how like something like that, like you're totally right. You get something that's so precious, it's like you almost don't want to like put any effort into it because
It's
like
scary.
you're scared. It's like I don't want to mess this up. But it also kind of like breeds innovation because like some of the artwork that I've seen recently outside of your own is like such simple things like ballpoint pens. Like I feel like there's like this ballpoint pen explosion of artists right now where it's like such a simplistic tool that like
Absolutely.
draws you right back to like being in high school doodling on your notes when you should be paying attention in history class or something like that.
That's a good point. Yeah, the material also can play a big role in setting mood or tone for a story. And uh, another reason is I was just never good at the straight pencils, inks, colors, that workflow. There's a couple stories in Dishoom 1 that were done that way, but I found that it takes me just as long to go all out mixed media, so I might as well just do whatever looks stronger. And yeah, and so like sometimes a ballpoint pen, colored pencil, markers, throw it all in
Yeah.
there. What's funny is like if people are interested in collecting like original art and stuff, I have no idea how long the stuff is going to last. And you mentioned Stu, like like scanning the artwork. I don't even have a scanner anymore. I broke mine in 2020, and so I've just been taking photos with my phone and getting them on the computer that way.
Wow.
So I don't know. In like a year's time, like a lot of the original artwork that are in my comics might no longer physically exist. but I have photos.
Oh man.
Picture it didn't happen.
Yeah, there
You
go.
have the proof at least. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You know,
That's great.
it's kind of crazy that you say that this is all digital, because if you would have asked me, like, previously, I would have said, like, no, there's no way that the newest book could all be digital, because it's so uniquely Royale. Like, I flipped through all your other books here, and it looks so much in the same vein of your previous work here. I was kind of fascinated listening to a previous interview as well, when you were talking about mixed media, that you were influenced a lot regarding self-publishing by Ashley
Oh, yeah.
Wood. Like, can you talk a little bit about that? Like, where was that level of influence, and I guess how did that lead you to on the path that you're on right now?
Well, stylistically, I don't think I have a ton of influence, only because I think I lack the skill to do exactly what he does. But
Oh,
well, I mean, just
yeah.
with different styles, different approaches, different sensibilities. Like
Yeah,
he's got
totally.
such a reduced, limited color palette, and I can't possibly. I need to have stuff loud and bright. So that right off the bat would make my stuff look very different from his, even if I tried to draw or paint like him. But I'm really drawn towards atmospheric, moody work and anything that feels immersive. And his stuff, I felt, does that really effectively. A lot of that pop bot stuff. That was something I first saw in like what was it? Communication Arts. They had like illustration awards. This is back in like 2003 or something like that. And they had Ashley.
Oh, you don't have to say it like it was so long ago, man. That hurts. It hurts.
It was high school for me, so it was it felt a long time, like a long time.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, but I remember seeing that and was like, wait a minute, like comics can look like that, and like it was just another one of those things that reminded me, because I was already a big Alex Ross fan at the time, and Bill Sienkiewicz. But it was just like another reminder of like, oh, comics don't have to look this certain way; they could pretty much be anything. And Wood incorporated a lot of graphic design stuff that was very unusual for the time. Like we see more of it now, but he works with a designer named Tom Muller, and yeah, his stuff like initially just looked unlike anything else on the comic shelves, where it would have like sans serif typography, and it would look like a modernist approach, and it just was a real breath of fresh air. And so that was just an eye-opening experience, and I became a fan of his back in 2003. But then my thing with making comics, I was one of those people who would always plan and think, and one day I'm going to do this, and one day I'm going to do that, and like years and years and years went by, and like nothing got done. And I would have binders of notes and sketches, and nothing got done. There was nothing to show for it. And then I was reading some interview with him, and he was talking about how he had like self-published all this stuff in like his early 20s, and I was like, oh man, I'm like like right at the cusp of turning 30 at that time. And it was like, well, I really gotta like get my stuff in order here. And so that really lit a fire under me to get things done. And so the goal was to have Dishoom 1 done by the time I turned 30, and I actually didn't get it done until I was 34. But I tried.
Baby steps.
Yeah. We loved it either way. You were talking a little bit about like the atmosphere, the mood, the themes and stuff like that you're like to create with and everything. The first thing I think about when I flip through some of your books is it immediately takes me back like this little nostalgia trip in a way, and it might be kind of what you're saying, just in a different way. Yeah. Like I get this there's a vibe to your books that is just, it's represented in every single issue. And I think it's like, it reminds me of like staring at old like Nintendo cartridge art, or like something like that, something adventurous, something like not safe, but it's still something you connect with. It's just beautiful
Oh,
stuff. And I was just wondering, like you talked a little bit about some of those moods, those atmospheres you're trying to recreate, but is there any more like direct or indirect influences you can think about from like your
oh,
childhood that made
absolutely.
you come to this kind of style to begin with? You mentioned some artists and whatnot,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, that's
Well,
really
you mentioned
fascinating.
Nintendo game cartridges and like video game box art, and that's huge. And there's one artist, Bob Wakelin, who'd done a ton, um, and that was a big influence. But there's so many that I feel like are uncredited that impacted me, and I'll never know who actually did them, but they've definitely made an impact. Um, yeah, video game box art, old paperback book covers was huge. Frank Frazetta, Jeffrey Catherine Jones, Ken W. Kelly. There's just so many, and like I remember, I used to be a big reader as a little kid, and I remember like going to the library and like getting the book out just based on the cover art. I know you're not supposed to judge a book by the cover, but I'd get it and I would like take it home and I would just like stare at it and like to like get like my nose like right up against that cover and just be like, oh, like what if I could be like in that world? And um, so like just like trying to recreate that feeling is something I have in mind a lot when I do my work. So it's definitely a nostalgia kick. And even when there's things like future technology, like there's flying cars and stuff, I'm not really thinking, oh, what would a future flying car look like? I'm thinking, what would a 1980s version of a future car look like? And so it's
Exactly. Yeah.
It's the best version
right,
too, let's be honest.
absolutely.
The 80s had it right.
Something, yeah, sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I was just saying, one of the things I find fascinating is that, like, especially with the newest book here, and even some of the previous stories, I feel like we get tidbits. We get little glimpses into the world of this Sam J. Royale
Mhm.
universe. What does the grand epic? What is the Cimmerillion version of a Sam J. Royale book look like? Because I kind of want that in my life, like really
Oh
badly.
gosh. Well, the closest thing to that would be on the shelf behind me, the bottommost shelf. There's a couple binders with 2-inch spines that are just packed with notes and sketches for just the Dishoom stories, and yeah, that's all headed on a path. But the way I work is this might be sacrilege to a lot of people who are big comic readers, but like I don't care for plot as much as I maybe should. Plot is like a necessary thing you have to get out of the way and deal with, but the real thing is that immersion and atmosphere. That's what I'm after. And so what happens is, but you need a plot or there's nowhere to go. So like I'll have the plot, and that's what's in the layouts in the binder. But then when I finally get around to realizing the story based on those notes and based on those outlines, whatever I'm going through in my current life at the time of working is going to find its way into that work. And so it's going to change what the story is about. It's not going to change the plot, but it's going to change what it's about. And so an example of that is like in Dishoom 1, there is a story called The Theo Portal. And that story is a loose retelling of a Russian fairy tale called Vasilisa the Beautiful. And I knew for, God, probably since 2015, oh, I'm going to do a story with this character that's going to retell this Russian fairy tale. But then it being about turning 30 happened because that's what was happening while I was working on it. And so it changed, I guess, not even the subtext, it's overtly in the text, but like, things that go beyond just the plot, the actual step 1, step 2, step 3, different acts. Yeah, so like you could get the full story, but I don't think you're getting much out of that. Um, so my wife is very much involved in the whole behind the scenes of all of these things, like helping me choose like which stories go in which issues and all of that. And like she's got a lot of great insights. And one thing that was happening with Pariah was specifically she would ask me like, oh, well, what's going to happen in the next story? And I'd be like, well, I could tell you the plot of what happens, but that's not going to you're not going to be into that. Like you'll need to see it to get what it's about. And she would fight it for like the first 3 stories, and then like she finally, like the 4th story, like, oh, I see it now. Like now I get it. Like I have to just put my doubts aside and know like this is not about plot. And yeah, so I don't know if that really answers the question, but that's the best I can do.
Yeah, and just to pick up on that, in terms of Dishoom and what you have sitting around, are those stories continuations of the characters you've already created, or do you? I'm sure you have new characters, waiting in the wings. But do you also have stories for these, like Hourglass Man? Like I love that guy so much. I want to see more of him. Do you have continued stories for some of these characters that you've always already given us in the first?
Oh yeah, no one's just going to appear once. As far as I know.
Okay, cool.
Everyone so far will definitely come back, and yeah, like I just try to do it slowly. So like the next book will have a couple familiar people, and then like a couple new people, and we'll just slowly roll them out that way. And in terms of when issue 3 comes out, the best I could do there is after 2 and before 4.
So does the behind the scenes sketchbook come between 2 and 4 as well? Because it sounds like you have a pretty impressive sketchbook that you could also release to give people like a behind the scenes.
I don't know. I mean, like, so this is another thing. I envy people who can thumbnail really nicely. Like there's Ben Granoff. I don't know. He's a friend of mine. He's like the king of thumbnails. So you just give him a pad of Post-its and he will lay out this beautiful, like he did it for me live. We were having dinner and he just like, I'm telling him a story like I'm talking to you guys, and he just like storyboarded out the whole thing. By the time I was done telling it, he had the whole thing on the table. I can't do that. And not only can I not do that, but like I not like forget the speed. I just can't do it. Period. You can give me all day. I can't do it that way. And so my thumbnails, my sketches, a lot of times it's just me writing in different color pens to like keep ideas straight. And like if you saw some of my thumbnails, like the Pariah layouts were just rectangles. I just drew out the panels and wrote what was going to happen in each panel, and that was it. Right. And then you take the initial sketch and then just keep pounding away at that until it becomes the final. So there's no like thumbnail and then draw it again for final. It's just you do it once and keep going.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of curious because you brought up Tom Muller before, and I really like his design aesthetic. And you have your background is in graphic design primarily, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Right.
So when you say that you kind of like lean away from thumbnailing, do you kind of look at it from a layout perspective first and a storytelling perspective secondary, or maybe am I interpreting something?
It's all different. All the stories have different approaches. Yeah, sometimes the image comes first. Sometimes I have a fully realized, this is like what the last page of the story is going to be, and like I just start painting, and then you figure out the rest after the fact. Other times it's like you said, where it starts out with the layout, and that's probably the most common way that I work is like I'll draw out all the panels first and figure it out from there, because the flow of the page and directing the eye and all of that stuff is just because of the graphic design training, like is always at the forefront of my mind.
Just picking up on the graphic design bit, where in your career did you branch off and start going creative? Where did you really start? I know that's always been a thing with you in the background, but where did you really make the move to take it seriously and pursue it as a more or less a full-time deal?
Well, I mean, I do have a full-time job where it is a graphic design job. I work in advertising for a publishing company, which is like kind of ironic that my day job is to do ads to sell books, and I have no idea how to advertise my own books. But,
I'm sorry.
What are you talking about? You're on a premiere show right now.
The
audience where we can.
You guys invited me. I never would have thought to reach out and ask. So I really appreciate
your work spoke volumes. So
yes, absolutely.
But it was actually like right around the same time. So I started my current job in 2012 and was moving from rural Pennsylvania to New York City, and New York just has a real energy to it, like that, along with like the then impending 30th birthday. It just really lights a fire under you to like get some stuff done. And so it was like, like I've been meaning to do all this comic stuff and like illustration work and all this, and like it's like now or never. And so it was really just in 2012 that like I came up with the whole the SJR logo and the Sam J. Royale name and all that stuff. So yeah, 2012.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Stickers.
a great logo design, by the way. I love it. It's fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
It is.
Yeah.
It's so clean.
Well, the design thing is interesting because so a couple points about that real quick. So if you have not, if you're out there and you have not purchased anything from your store, you get like a whole presentation with your stuff.
Yeah.
Like, we have this like mysterious black envelope.
You gave
We
me a
get the
Christmas
like,
card,
CD
man.
case
Like
in
I got
case kids don't know what these are. We got like cards and stuff, and we talked about your logo being so cool. So like we can definitely see the design influence impacting all of this stuff right here, but not only in like the presentation of your books and the swag, I'll call it, right, that comes along with it, but also like your character design in general.
Thanks.
And I'm so now that I know that sketchbooks exist, I'm really anxious to see like what's in that, because your character design is incredible, and I would just love to see the things that didn't make it, you know what I mean, or things that will come eventually. So like, can you talk about your character design and you know, what are you thinking about when you're creating these characters?
Thank you. But first of all, I can't take credit. The presentation, so Pariah comes like this, Kala Jadoo comes like this, and it comes with the trading cards
and tissue paper wrapped up in tissue.
Yeah, tissue paper, red and black tissue paper. I wish I could tell you I was clever enough to come up with all of that, but my wife came up with all of that, and she initially wrapped the first several issues of Pariah, and then when I did a couple, she's like, "No, you're not like creasing it sharply enough, and you gotta." And she really like backseat drove it, and I was like rolling my eyes. But then like people started complimenting the wrapping, and I was like, "Okay, I really gotta
It's so good.
pay attention."
It's so good. Yeah, get her on real quick. Where's she? No.
You should really talk to her. She's a little brain hung up.
If anything, you definitely show your intelligence by deferring to your wife as often as you do.
Yeah.
So
for Dishoom 1, I resisted it a lot. And then what I found was ultimately it would take me like a month, and then like I would arrive at the same conclusion she did a month prior. I was like, oh, all right. Well, you know, I could save myself a lot of headache if I just listened to her from the start.
That's being married right
bro.
there. So
if you're lucky.
And see, what she doesn't understand right now is that you've seen me just set her up to be like a duo interview. So the next time you're on, it's going to be you and your wife and all of us now. So we're going to really understand the whole process.
We'll hire a sitter, and that would be great. That would be so much fun to do, actually.
Exactly.
To talk about character design, you put me in a funny position here, because I don't know if I should like ride this, let this mystique ride, or if I should just burst your bubble. Because like the truth is, the sketchbook, it's just for me to understand, and so the drawings are terrible. They're terrible, and there's nothing fully realized in there at all. It's a lot of stick figures, a lot of notes, a lot of like. There's a character that has a symmetrical design. I will draw half, and like
right.
I know what the other side looks like. Do I have to bother with both arms, both legs? And they're really not presentable. But you know, maybe I should have just let you pretend and imagine something more special. But yeah, character design is something I think about a lot. And you have, hold up this real quick. So you mentioned Hourglass, this assassin character. And
yes,
I put a lot of thought into that, where it was just in my mind, the back of my mind, where like, what if there was like this 60s cartoon Alex Toth designed I don't know if you're familiar with the Italian crime comics, also from the 60s, like Diabolic started this. So like basically when American comics were going through the whole Silver Age Renaissance, Italy, they had a character called Diabolic, who was like this master thief. And it proved so popular that instead of a superhero boom, over there you got a criminal protagonist boom in comics. And so there were just a ton of all these like 60s crime comics where the main character is the bad guy. And they were really cool looking. And that was a big source of inspiration behind Hourglass, at least visually. So the idea of him having like just this very sleek silhouette and just a knife and just a gun. And that's the only reason why he has this flying buddy here holding his tools, because I wanted to keep the silhouette as clean as possible. So like, the utility belt, he's got this ball, this beach ball full of goods that flies around after him.
Yeah.
Okay, well, when you put it like that, it takes a little bit of the mystique away, but I still love it so much.
Shooting myself in the foot.
That's great.
Well, and the other part of your work that I really appreciate so much, and like I really get a lot of joy out of it, is that there is some joy. Like there's you have a wide variety of storytelling mechanisms that you use, but I feel like you lean on joy quite a bit. There's so many like just fun things that happen throughout your book. Like you'll flip a page and it'll just be your character going, shit, here we are, right? And you're just like, oh, I didn't expect that to happen. Like it's just like this like playful page turn that is kind of like a really hard thing to do even in traditional comics. So like when you like marry that with the mythological aspects that you have in a lot of your books, I just love that so much. So can you speak to how you like bring those two things together? Because mythology stories don't tend to have a lot of joy in them. In fact, there are a lot of tragic stories that usually are most associated with them.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't really thought of it from that angle, but mythology for me, it always had a lot of evocative imagery, and so that's what would always grab me first. And um, but I mean, I guess it depends on the story and what you take away from it, because a lot of those myths they operate on like on a symbolic level, and so there might be a positive message in a downer story or something. There might be a joyous aspect, or also like it depends like where you cut it off. Like if you stop the Icarus story halfway through and he's flying, hey, that's kind of cool.
That's true. That's
it takes
true.
a turn after, but yeah, like I guess specifically the oh shit turn page thing would be the sort of genre. So in Dishoom 1, there's an unnamed protagonist that his name is revealed in issue 2. It's not a spoiler. His name is Moondog. And basically, that character grew out of me thinking, like, you know how you have a lot of hyper competent characters that can do no wrong? And, like, sometimes it just gets a little annoying, where it's like, you know, to throw anyone under the bus with Batman, and like he's essentially a god, but was defied that he's like a normal human, and like, you know, they take it a little too far, and I thought like, not only can I not identify with that at all, but like I don't even think I could write that in a plausible way where he's a main character. Like maybe a supporting character that's hyper competent, fine, but like if it's a protagonist, I think. There's got to be a little bit of humor, and even if the character takes himself seriously, I I can't allow the audience to take him entirely seriously because that's just not something I could really identify with. So he's got in the story the sort of genre like he does some things very competently and other things not at all. And he's about 50% prepared for his mission, and I think that's a lot more relatable than other things you find.
That scene where we're staring at the guards and the portal opens. Yeah. And the smaller guard goes in the portal and the larger one comes out. Yeah. And the literal internal monologue says shit. I was like, all right, I'm going to jive with this guy just fine, I think, because that was just because like up until that point you were like, where are we going? Like he's kind of serious. It's like a breaking in kind of a story, and I'm jiving with it. And that moment hits, and I'm like, all right, this guy knows how to mix a lot of things into these stories and make things really fun too. So going right back to what you were talking about. Yeah, it was so good.
And actually, I think that's a perfect opportunity, if it's okay with you guys here. Did you want to maybe turn the camera onto some of these books and maybe take a closer look at everything that we have going on here?
Sounds good.
All right, let's do it.
All right, so we're taking a closer look here at some of the books that you've released here, and I have to kind of jump back to something that we mentioned earlier. So your books are kind of like care packages in the best way possible, but I got to pinpoint something. When you get a book, I've gotten personalized notes in here, which are so awesome. But one of the first ones that I got here, it actually calls out the fact that when I ordered this book and you saw my name, you were just utterly distraught by the fact that I was actually not Lois Lane from Smallville, Erica Durance, but I was truly Eric Durance.
Yes.
How disappointed were you knowing that you were just sending this book to some Joe Schmo and not actress tour de force?
So I want to clarify. So like, I'm really glad we got to talk about this. I wanted to bring it up. What happened was I was talking to a friend of mine about Smallville, and I was saying, "Hey, Erica Durance is a really great Lois Lane," and then the conversation ended. And not like 2 minutes later, I get a notification on the phone that I have a sale, and I look, and it's Eric Durance. I'm like, oh, okay, okay, this is my friend fucking with me, real funny, ha ha ha, and so I didn't think it was a real purchase for the longest time, which was a bigger issue. But
That's great.
I mean, before I even like cracked open the book, I read the note and I was just, I mean, I was just beside myself laughing. That was just so funny. I couldn't believe that that was the situation. And trust me, having this name, this is not the first time that that's ever come up here. But we're taking a look at Pariah here, which would be the third book that's come out. And it's, again, the square format, kind of just like the same thing that we had previously. And this still is in the quote unquote comic book style here. So we follow our bunny character. I love the design choice that you have right here, because it so reminds me of arguably the best or worst version of Mario. That this jumps
I'm so
right
glad
out
you
at
said
me
that
like
the
one of the
Goombas from
Koopa
the movie,
Troopers.
right? That's it.
The Goombas, yes.
100%. That's that crept in there. The little head, the big wide body, the little peg teeth. Yeah, there's a little Goomba in there.
Yeah, I love that so
Oh,
much.
thanks.
But we have our characters, and you could totally see the artistic style that you have here, which is again what blew me away so much, knowing that you worked digitally on some of this and physically, because everything marries together just so beautifully.
Yeah, the goal is to not let people be able to tell, but like that, the dagger on that page and the previous page was watercolor and then finished in Photoshop. The decapitation scene was markers and a sketchbook. The spaceship was always digital. I don't think I ever drew it with a pencil or anything. Um, yeah, I just like to mix and match.
Yeah, this is amazing stuff. I love this
Oh,
so
thanks.
much.
Appreciate it.
So so the other thing too is you can very clearly see in the chapter breaks here, the graphic design background here, because this jumps off the page here, and it's not even, again, it's nothing more than the chapter break here, kind of telling you what's to come. But the design choices, like, can you talk about like even just the simple choices of like this design right here, like what goes into kind of like putting this all in play, and how many drafts of this, like just these kind of pages do you go through before you have a finalized copy?
Of the cover or the logo design?
Oh, just like the chapter breaks and
Oh,
the logos, just like, kind of just even the non-story parts of
sure,
the
sure.
book.
Yeah, I mean, because it all contributes to the atmosphere, right? So the the story breaks. What's funny about those is I knew that all of these strips were going to be 4 pages and they were going to have a cover, so that's 5 pages. But I wanted them to be laid out in a certain way where the cover would always be on the right side, and so ultimately that left me with having to do a filler page before every single strip. And so it was really just like, well, what am I going to fill that space with? And then I thought, well, let me just do like a abstract graphic design interpretation or allusion to something that's happening in the story. And basically, what ended up happening was Pariah became kind of an unintentional homage to 90s grunge, where um, in the 90s, like right when Photoshop like became a ubiquitous thing, you would see a lot of grunge typography, and that's what all of this is. And like the real reason why I did it was, um, oh, my kid's going to be born soon. I got to get this book out into the printer ASAP. And if I intentionally make the stuff messy, if I embrace messy, I can work faster. And so that's why there's the 90s grunge. I mean, it's also something like it's an aesthetic I like, but that was the main decision there. And in terms of the logo, I don't know. The logo just kind of came to me full formed in my mind, so that didn't really take too much time. There's really precise letter spacing and things like that, and I mean it's all custom. So it's like Helvetica bold, but the A is custom and the I is custom, and then all the spacing in between the letters are custom. But uh, I don't know. It just like I saw it in my head, and it was just a matter of getting it down on the screen in this case. The circle symbol I'm not going to talk about because that is going to be very overtly explained in a future Pariah story.
All right. All right. I'll allow you to keep some secrets there. It's going to keep me buying books for sure. But you're absolutely right about the grunge aesthetic, though, because I mean, I didn't click in my head until you said it, but this definitely has that kind of like rock poster feel to it. It definitely has like the cut and paste, feel for all of that stuff. So that's awesome.
Thanks.
And we were talking about EO Portal here, which is in, I believe, this first issue
Yeah,
here.
It's a backstory, right? Yeah.
Which again,
the last one.
yep, comes with a note.
Yeah, there's a specific page in here that really blew me away, and it's before these pages. Go back another right there, that one. Yeah, that landscape scene. Oh my gosh. Can you talk about how this came to be, like how this was developed, what kind of tools you used? Are you doing a mixed approach here too? Is this all digital? What do you remember from this page? It blew me away.
That's a good way to phrase it. What do I remember? This is a long time ago. And a lot of times I forget. Like I remember someone asked me, and I was like, "Oh yeah, it was definitely digital." And then I found it drawn with like markers,
right.
in a sketchbook. So I don't remember all the time, but I'm pretty sure that one was mixed. It was a lot of marker and ballpoint pen, and then a lot of it done digitally.
Yeah,
I wanted kind of a shift in style because the pages prior, what's happening is you have someone in tangible reality, which was in that particular short story denoted by ink on paper and then colored with a more traditional comic workflow. And then I wanted something to be very different once you turn the page. So the color the color palette changes and the whole art approach changes at that point.
Yeah, and I like to use the word like sterile too. Like if in the previous pages, if you flip back one, Eric, you have this more like lab, mad scientist, cold, dark, calculated kind of a vibe, right? And as soon as you turn that page, it's like Alice. It's like Alice in Wonderland in a sense. You know what I mean? So you have this more like you're brought back to nature, grounded in more in some kind of a reality there. But I just absolutely love that page turn. So really dramatic, really worked. I loved it.
Yeah, you mentioned the sterile lab scene, and Peter Weller in RoboCop.
Sure.
Where like all the behind the scenes there with like he'd like worked with like some mime or something and like developed this way to move his body, and then like when they gave him the suit, he couldn't do any of the moves he had practiced, and he had to learn entirely fresh because like it was too bulky, and he like initially thought it would be like a very sharp and sleek set of movements he could do. And like so kind of what happened here was I saw a certain thing in my head and then like went for it with the ink on paper and realized, this is kind of stiff and not really what I wanted it to be, so I might as well lean into that and make it intentionally sterile. And so that was kind of what happened there. It was me realizing my own weakness and then disguising it, and now I'm spilling the beans and ruining it for myself by telling everybody.
Matt, we love to know how the sausage is made around here, so that's part of this. Anybody can read it, but it's rare to be able to talk to these to folks like you to really kind of understand where your head was. So we eat this stuff up, man. So don't feel bad about that.
Just right here, on this story, like when you. Like some of this is done in digitally, and then you have this great shot of like the werewolf holding the guy up by his neck. I think a page or two over, and that looks painted. Like what at what point in the story did you decide? Well, I'm going to have this page be painted and look super epic, and then we're going to go back into the story as I've been presenting it. Is that like as you're creating it, or is that an afterthought, or?
That was something we talked about Ashley Wood's influence. This is something I blatantly stole from him, where I don't remember which book specifically, but I remember seeing like, oh, this is pen and ink with flat color, and that goes on for like 6 pages, and then you turn the page and it's an oil painting. And and so it'd be something to really hit home like a dramatic moment. And so I thought, well, what dramatic moment would I want to highlight in this particular story? And I thought this would be the scene to do it.
That's dope.
Yeah. Well, and it also speaks to what you were talking about too with Sienkiewicz as well. Not necessarily stylistically, but the choices that he makes with the mixed
Right.
media and the page turn to a totally different artistic approach as well. Like, yeah, it totally bleeds through here. And the combination of these two things, it's like part of the, like, I can't say that one page or the other evokes this thought in me, but you've talked about like the Alex Toth approach, which I totally see here. But I feel like the combination of the two styles, like, it has something that's like feels very reminiscent of like the Fleischer Superman cartoon to me as well. It has that painterly quality, I guess, that feel aesthetic to it.
Yeah, the Fleischer Superman cartoons are still they hold up today just as well as they did when they first
Absolutely.
came out. They're beautiful, and they were a huge
Yeah.
influence on
Uh,
me, as well as things that were influenced by them also influenced me. So like Batman the animated series, I was just the right age for that, and so that was huge, and that cribbed so much from the Fleischer Superman. And
yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of also even Masters of the Universe in here. Yeah, there was a brief period back in 2012 through probably 2015 where I was a wannabe YouTube animator, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, oh yeah, there's I didn't make anything too good. There's like two videos. There are two videos out of 10 that I wouldn't be mortified if you saw. But I learned a lot from doing it, and what I found was my favorite stage of the whole process was the background paintings, and I would find
Mm.
an excuse to write new
Oh,
scenes in just to be able to paint another background. And so and that goes right back to like the immersive quality of art and all that. I like the background paintings. I like the settings. I think those are really key to setting the tone.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, that makes so much sense. And I know, Stu, you're a huge Batman the Animated series fan as well too,
Absolutely,
right?
Sam. Do you have any favorite episodes or any favorite memories, particularly from that show growing up?
God, I was obsessed. I was so obsessed with that show. I mean, you probably it's not too much of a stretch if you flip through Dishoom 1, but I also liked werewolves a lot. So I guess
Yeah.
Moon of the Wolf was like
Oh
not the
yeah,
most
Yeah.
popular Batman episode, but I loved that as a kid. And
No,
then there was
absolutely.
that other one, Tiger. I loved Clayface.
Yeah,
Anytime Batman's fighting a monster that he shouldn't be fighting,
Oh yeah.
I was.
absolutely. I just watched Tiger a couple weeks ago. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
it's
Yeah.
a, it's,
Yeah, I watch it with. I try to put the. I got two little ones, a 6 and a 5-year-old boys, and I try to put it in their periphery as much as possible.
do they respond to it at all, or is it just too old?
They do, absolutely. I think,
Okay.
every little boy responds to Batman in some way, shape, or form. They're not. They like
oh
the
yeah,
Lego Batman a little bit better, but regardless,
Gotcha.
Mm.
there's definitely some hooks there.
That's awesome.
yeah, for sure. And we were talking about the design on the hourglass character as well, and here's is in full effect. And I feel like this borrows a lot from that animated series feel as well. This looks like these could be, animation cells that come right out of an episode where Batman's taking on one of these
Yeah.
villains.
Yeah, there's probably some unintentional influence that like creeps in because I mean that show is really such a big deal to me. And not only just the Batman the animated series, but all the stuff that came after, like the new Batman Adventures and Batman Beyond and Justice League and all of that. I loved
Justice
all of that.
League, yep,
So
yeah,
Yeah,
it's all gonna affect me in some way.
Yeah.
yeah,
yeah. And I love the inclusion of these pages as well because being of the age that's, well, heck, we all are. Like, I grew up not only with comics, but I grew up with trading cards, right? So I'm so glad, first of all, that you included trading cards in Kala
Uh-huh.
Jadoo. But this stuff right here, it just like whets my fancy so much because there's nothing that like gets me excited more than the back of a trading card that shows you all of the equipment that a person has and like their power sets and how intelligent they may or may not be. So like the breakdown of all of this is just so amazing, and just seeing the character design that we were talking about previously kind of in full effect. This is awesome
Oh,
stuff.
thanks. I mean, it's almost a cheat. It's almost a way, in a way, making fun of those things because nothing's truly explained. If you read it, it's like
Right.
we don't
it's
know
Oh
how
all
yeah,
feathers
Batman
of
no,
works.
mystery. Yeah,
He's got loafers that absorb sound. How does that work? But they know like the exact
They know
millimeters
the
for the
heel
heel.
size. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. I
yeah,
love that
yeah,
he wore loafers though. It's so
Yeah.
great. Like
Yeah.
it's what a menace,
He,
dude.
he
Like,
he's got knives. He's got knives, but can only conceal one. That like that. I love
Yes.
that too. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah.
You only
Yeah. It's
conceal
so
one.
good.
You might have more in that ball that follows him around.
Yeah. Right. Right. Oh,
Yeah.
this is another great one right here. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
But
this was
yeah, this one is
yeah, I gave
excellent.
my wife was asking who we're interviewing tonight, and I gave her this copy to Shum, and this was her favorite story by a country mile. She was like, this reminds me of our little boy so much. Like, make sure you shake it off and everything. Like I just loved I love the
humor.
exploits of these three. It was hilarious. Yeah,
That's great.
so
This is
much
actually
fun.
the second time I've done an interview where someone said this was their wife's favorite story. It was funny to me. I'll take it. I mean, it's like I thought it was like the most juvenile little boy story in the whole set.
For
But
sure. Yeah.
what's funny is my wife hated this one. So this story, it was one of the first Dishoom stories I'd ever done, and it was supposed to be in the first issue. And my wife was like, "You can't put that one in the first issue. It's too silly. You got to like bump it to the second one." And so the Sword of Jandra and Yule Crew were going to be flip flopped originally, and
okay.
without like I can't give you the full explanation without spoiling it, but she backed up her suggestion with a lot of really good reasons that I can't share without spoiling future stuff. So once again, she was right, and I'm glad I listened to her.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was actually like most of these pages were done in 2015. It's the oldest stuff out of everything in the two books.
Oh wow.
okay.
Wow, that's so interesting. Like, one of the things I noticed in like going from book to book is that you could definitely tell it's still you. It's still stylistically in your realm here, but some of the design choices here, we still go from like the painterly pages here over to the to the more traditional pages. But even some of the choices that you make here with like the halftone or the the zipatone right here, like you don't see that in your other work here, and I thought that made this so unique. And then obviously when we get to this epic page here, like who could be mad at something like this? This is the best thing in
Right.
the world.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
it
it's
was
at both times hilarious and epic.
with the zipatone and stuff. It was just experimenting. I wanted to see what works for me, what I was comfortable doing, and then like it just got to messing around with it. So like that top panel on the left page there, where he's peeing lightning.
Yep.
I basically wanted to take screen tone as a starting point and then have it feel painterly, even though I don't think there's any paint in there. I don't remember though for sure, but I'm pretty sure there's not.
Yeah. Well, I love the layered approach too. Like you have a good sense of the foreground, middle ground, and background, and it feels funny to talk about something like this page, the activities that are happening in this page, right? But it's like in such an artistic way, but like the way that the hair and the gloves pop off the screen, and obviously the electricity definitely shows. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was super
Yeah, that flat
effective.
color really pops for sure in the hair and gloves. I love that part. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. As we go through here, see again, we have like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you brought up the fact that
Right.
Masters of the Universe
Oh,
played
yeah.
a part, because early on when I first picked up your books here, I think that was the selling point that I was chatting with Nick on the side, and I'm like, you got to check this guy out, man. It's kind of like if Ralph McQuarrie was like drawing Masters of the Universe. Like that's the vibe that I get on this. And I think stories like this and the fact that you were talking about like, your fascination with the backgrounds too, it goes to show, like, I think maybe I was right with my description here, because again, this stuff all just, I don't know, I feel like it sings that through and through.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I love Casper Cole and how you made him nefarious. You made him a Nazi and a bad guy, and like there's the Illuminati ties, and it felt so on point. He felt like what was it? Ozymandias from Watchmen, Adrian Veidt. He kind of had that air to him. Like I love this character. I thought it was
There's
cool.
a little bit of that. I'm so glad you picked up on that, because I never say Nazi, I never say World War II, but if you're paying attention to the helmet shape, it's like, oh yeah, he is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
just-
the design choice sings through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that
So I'm
evolution
really
of power through the ages is just that was a great way to represent that
it
continuation
felt
of power.
authentic and
It's really
and
cool.
true. Yeah.
Wow.
And you picked up on all of it, the Illuminati stuff, all of it. Yeah, it's all there. It's all there.
Yeah.
That's cool.
All the symbology, yeah, for sure. All right, well, I think we're gonna jump into your last book here to really give
Okay.
people a taste of what they have to look forward to. So this first story, like, I mean, you came out of the gates swinging on this because I love how you really spell out a lot of the background about how you got into comics. Not only that, but like how you got into some of the mythological aspects of it. But it's played out in such an interesting, cool way. Like, I love your representation of Superman up here. It has such a Mignola like feel to that little, the little tidbit of the painting there.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, but so let me ask you this: Is this 100% like? Is this factual? Is this true, or is this true? Is this
Oh no,
storytelling
that
by
happened.
way of you?
I actually just recently gave a copy of Kala Jadoo to that uncle who has no memory of this exchange that we had more years ago than I would like to admit. God, what is it, like 35 years ago, 34 years ago? But yeah, it was like we had this conversation when I was 5, and it really impacted me, and he has no memory of it. And so it's really cool to get to share that with him.
That's cool.
I'm glad you brought that up because that was the reason where I was like, I wonder if this is just a storytelling technique. Because when you mentioned in here that he had no recollection of that, I was just like, oh, wait a minute, maybe that's just a clever little thing that he's throwing in. But that was true.
Oh
That's
no,
amazing.
actually, everything. Well, we'll get to it. We'll get to this page. I'll tell you later.
Yeah, well, just to pick up on that, do you think that experience and him talking about Superman and Hanuman and you growing up reading DC and the ACK comics from India, do you think all of that like kind of like blending of styles and mythologies and folklore, do you think that carried over into you as an adult, and why we get like a little bit of everything with your creations?
100%. Like this changed like the course of my life, for sure.
Yeah.
Without question. Yeah. Like I can't, I was like half joking about not knowing how to sell my books, but the truth is, like when somebody says, "Oh well, what's Dishoom about?" or like "What genre is it?" I don't know how to answer because it's kind of everything.
Yeah.
So it's and like sometimes I can't even tell the difference while I'm working on it. Like, and then someone will be reading it and they're like, "Oh well, like this opens with like a stormy night. So is this like a horror?" And like, maybe.
We'll see. Yeah, just read and find out. But so as Eric's flipping through here, are these are all stories. I mean, are these stories that you had to research? Like, how familiar were you with all of these different one pagers? Did you have to do a lot of research, or are these things that you just naturally consumed growing up? I mean, you said you were a big reader and things like that, and had access to a lot of these stories. But like, how much of this did you remember and then research to build out, and how much did you have to just kind of figure out as you went through?
I would remember the broad strokes, but I couldn't remember. We were talking about comic book dimensions and all the tricky numbers. I can't remember dates or anything. And so, like Gibson's Ghost, I would have to look up, when was the shadow created? When was it a radio show? When was that? So I'd remember like names and stuff, but I wouldn't remember years. But yeah, this is all stuff like I've been interested in since I was a little kid. And so the broad strokes I'd remember, but I would even get the decades wrong if you quizzed me now.
Yeah, I tried to think about how many like folklore things I even know, and I was like, man, this guy made a whole book out of them. So it made me think, like, wow, like how did he? Like, how did this start to me?
If you don't mind flipping back, that was a page or two. If you just flip back to the previous story, this one here. So this one did not require research because it was a true account that I experienced. So that was yeah, it's a kind of a story.
Oh wow!
There's a little bit of tidbits in your I love in the sleep paralysis story that we were just talking about. How I've heard stories, or I have friends who suffer from that or who've had that happen. But I just love how that you put that little bit at the end. You're like, but nobody tells you like why did these two images or these two characters keep popping up and a lot of people experiences. I thought that was like just a great little way to haunt the mind at the end of the story. That was very cool.
Well, how do you think I feel?
Absolutely.
Kidding,
but that was fascinating. I love that a little bit.
Yeah.
Here's some graphic design nerdiness. So like the trading card back is shown on the previous page there, and if you hold up the actual trading card, it's the same size,
same dimension.
Same size, and not only that, but like the circle title logo of Kala Jadoo on the cover, it's enclosed in a black circle, and that's the exact same size and placement as the trading card circle logo as well. So it's all connected.
And your sticker is the same size as the stickers too.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah, it
I
is.
mean, you say you hate math, but it's all working out. It's all adding up here.
But you see what it is. I hate math. I hate math. So once the number is decided, I just stick with that
You
number
just
Copy
forever.
paste. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
it is. It does a whole
Oh
line.
man.
Just in your testing.
Yeah, I
it.
know. I feel so unprepared. I didn't have the cards to actually prepare with.
That's so great.
It's okay though.
I'm
Yeah, like all of these pages are actually they stick to a strict grid structure. I don't think any of the pages break from the grid. So there's all these invisible guidelines that I worked with and that carry over for the entire issue, and it's the same grid that there's an article at the end of Pariah Many Lands, and that's where I started the grid as like a test before making Kala Jadoo, and then I used that same grid for Kala Jadoo.
man. But are we going to get a spin-off Monkey Man series from you at one point? I saw this and stopped immediately, and I'm like, look at that character design right there, man. It's like a Wolverine monkey on a
right?
it's like a Teenage Mutant Ninja monkey Wolverine claws. It's crazy.
It's a supposedly true story. Isn't that wild? Like people saw that guy running around in 2001, I think, and there were over 300 sightings.
That's nuts.
In 2001, that's like, I mean, come on, this isn't like a Bigfoot in the 70s thing either. That's absolutely insane.
And it's in the city, you know. It's not like in the woods.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, that's wild. But Sam, there also is only one appropriate answer to if we're gonna spin off. Like it has to be yes.
Oh,
by
yeah,
the way,
you're-
just in case you were looking for
Well,
something
we have
to do.
you know that Dev Patel movie. I haven't seen it yet. It looks really good, but that's kind of put a damper on things for me.
That's funny.
So I had Monkey Man plans.
Yep.
He beat me to
There
it.
you go.
He did.
Yeah.
Man.
And then later on in this, okay, so this was a really fascinating story, and I love the design choices that you have on this. And then I don't want to, pinpoint this one directly because I know that you had conversations about this much, but talk to me a little bit about the creation of this story here, and specifically the artistic choices that you made for this.
Oh, well, so these are not stories I made up. These are all supposedly real stories. This is a really famous Men in Black supposed encounter. There's a lot of debate as to whether it actually happened or not, but it's definitely one of the most interesting and fun to imagine. I'm not sure what. I guess like this wasn't the first story about the Men in Black to portray them as these kind of strange men with strange behavior, but it's a great example of it where things are just a little off. Like the witness here noticed that the man had no hair, not even eyelashes. He didn't have lips and just had red painted around his mouth with lipstick to simulate lips. He talked in a weird pace and just appeared at the guy's front door and disappeared just as quickly. Not sure if that answers the question, but
no, totally. I was very curious about the inspiration, like how the inspiration for the drawing here in correlation to the story for sure. So absolutely.
Since we were talking about like everything aligning and all of that, I have something that haunts me about that trading card, the Herbert Hopkins Man in Black encounter, where I was just thinking about it earlier this week, and I was like, I wish that I did the measurement and on the trading card if the penny was actual size. I didn't do that. It's smaller than
oh my god,
and it's driving me nuts. If there's ever a George Lucas re-release where I tamper and tinker with things, that is going to be the first thing I change.
I'm learning a lot about you today, Sam.
Yeah, really, absolutely, yeah. There's a method to the madness.
Awesome.
Yeah. So Sam, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about all these great books that you've put out here, and especially again the one that just recently came out, Kala Jadoo. Dude, tell us where can we find more of your work? What can we anticipate coming out in the future?
Well, all the work can be found at etsy.com/shop/SamJRoyale, and my wife also made a merch store at dishoom.creator-spring.com, and I always forget these URLs. So I'm reading them off of my business card right now.
Perfect.
In terms of what's coming out in the future, what people can expect in the future, there will be more Pariah, there will be more Dishoom, there will be more Kala Jadoo. I just couldn't tell you when.
That's good
And
enough.
there's also stuff that
Fair enough.
you couldn't expect because I didn't tell anybody about it. So there's other stuff cooking too.
Nice,
Awesome.
man. Well, yeah, rest assured, we're always excited here. So again, thank you so much for taking the time, man. We
Thank
appreciate it.
you.